My name is Amanda Parris, and I'm a radio and television host at CBC. I also write a weekly column for CBC, and in my spare time, I write for the stage and for the screen. I need to believe that all of the things that I've been through, that I've experienced, that I've seen, that I've had the privilege of witnessing and being a part of, has led me to be in this place, and then the things that I'm going through right now will lead me to be in the next place. I was born in London, England, and I arrived in Canada when I was 10 years old. My mom decided to move with me to Canada. She had been working in London in a job that she really liked and then was let go. I think it was like a nonprofit and they lost their money. Took it as a sign to reevaluate all the different realities of what it means to live in London, England. There are things that she observed when we came to Toronto to visit other family members that she didn't see in London. Although London is diverse, the different kinds of communities are very siloed. Different diverse groups didn't connect with each other. And there was something that told her that if she came to Toronto, that I, her daughter, would have more opportunities. And I think she, just for herself, really wanted to carve her own path and to chart her own destiny. And we moved to Toronto, to Scarborough, to Malvern. And it was really difficult those first few years. When people talk about culture shock, they often talk about cultures that are worlds apart and very different. And you wouldn't think that there would be culture shock moving from London to Toronto, but there was a huge culture shock for us. The coldness, and then just the coldness of people also. There's a bit of a coldness to Toronto. The first dream and ambition that I had when I was growing up was to be a writer. I wanted to write stories. I used to write them in elementary school in London. I was actually really encouraged by my teachers, and they used to call my mom into the school and tell her how much they loved my short stories, how much promise they saw in my writing. But then I had a very well-meaning uncle one day ask me, you're such a smart girl, what do you want to be when you get older? And I told him I want to be a writer, and he said, don't you want to take care of your mom? Writers don't make any money. You need to make money. I don't think he meant to, but literally it was just that one thing that completely took me off course. And after that, I was trying to always think of careers that would get me money. I went into university thinking I was going to be a lawyer. That was the plan. I think as an elective, I took a women's studies class, and I just fell in love with what I was learning and decided to make it my minor, and then made all my electives Latin American and Caribbean studies, and those classes changed my life. Gave me a whole new paradigm and worldview and way to see and understand people. I actually don't remember one single thing from my political science class, but I remember and have gone back to so many of the things that I read and that I studied in those women's studies and Latin American and Caribbean studies classes. And so it was in the midst of, coming through this awakening that I realized I want to do something. Like I need to make an impact on the world right now. And I was traveling. And then when we got back from those trips, one of my friends and I were thinking about how we could take all the things that we had learned and figure out what we could do in the places that we lived in. That was kind of the birth of Lost Lyrics, this alternative education organization that I co-founded with Natasha Daniel. And we started developing these after-school programs at first, and then weekend programs, and then curricula for schools. And through that work, I connected to the Remix Project, and then they hired me. And then as I was doing all of those things, that old desire to write started coming up because I was encouraging all of these young people to be creative, but I wasn't necessarily exploring my own creativity. And those young people would call me out and be like, what about you? What do you do? You're telling us to do all this stuff. So I was on a trip to Nairobi that I stumbled onto how much potential and possibility there could be in the theater. So I started writing for the theater, mostly because that was where I saw Black women writers and creatives in Canada flourishing. People like Trey Anthony, Debbie Young, Wayne Mengesha, Motion, just so many different people. These were women who I looked up to, and I thought they were brilliant, and a lot of them were creating in the theater. And so I said, okay, that's the space that I'm going to go into. I think the biggest challenge which has defined so much of my professional life has been if you can't see it, you can't be it. And so for most of the roles that I've gone into, I needed to see an example of somebody doing it before I realized that I could do it. And so I didn't think that I could be a teacher until university, because that was when I had my first Black female professor. I didn't have a Black teacher all throughout elementary school or high school. And so once I saw this woman, this incredible woman, Dr. Andrea Davis, and saw the impact that she was having on everybody in the classroom, including me, I was like, oh, this is something that I could do. And so then I, indirectly began exploring the idea of education through lost lyrics. So it took me a really long time to consider what I'm doing as a possibility and the things that I want to do beyond this. That's been the biggest challenge, is that if you can't see it, sometimes you don't even consider that as a possibility for your life. So the way that CBC Arts came to be is through all the connections that I made in community. I couldn't find a job for the longest time. Nobody would hire me, and it was really depressing because I'd done so much work in the city. I knew I didn't want to do the same things I've been doing before, but I needed money. And I had a conversation with Cheikh, one of the co-founders of Manifesto, and I was telling him that I was struggling to find work, and he was like, "What are you talking about? You know, you have so many skills." This opportunity came up where Manifesto was partnering with the CBC to do a diversity program, and they needed a facilitator. And he's like, "Well, I know a great facilitator." That just kind of snowballed into meeting all of the executives of the CBC and making all of these connections with them. And then when they were creating this television show called CBC Arts Exhibitionists, they needed a host, and one of those executives thought of me. The bold decision that I am the most proud of is the fact that me and another woman named Natasha Daniel had the audacity to think that we could start an alternative education organization called Lost Lyrics. And what was brilliant about our process was that we created it with the young people that we were working with, and they inspired so much. And I feel kind of in awe of our younger selves for having kind of blind courage to say that we were going to create, to see the young people that have come through it and the amazing things that they are doing today is still very humbling to know that we had played even a small part in that. That was the first time that I realized that if you can't see it, sometimes you just need to create it. And I know I definitely would not be anywhere close to what I'm doing right now if I hadn't done it. If I come into television or film or even theater earlier, I wouldn't come in with the worldview that I have and the principles and the perspectives and the stories. So I'm very grateful for all the accolades. I think that when you receive recognition from the communities that you are invested in and that you are a part of, it is so humbling and beautiful. And you know, they always say give people their flowers while they can still smell them, and so I'm very thankful to get several flowers while I'm still alive, and thankful that my communities have been gracious enough to give them to me. I personally feel like I still have so much more to do, and like I've barely begun, and I still have lots of ambitions that I'm not even close to achieving yet. I'm very grateful because life is not promised, and so you don't know how much more of your journey you're gonna get. The quote, "I didn't come this far to only come this far," means to me that I have a long way to go still. You're constantly like climbing for the mountaintop, but it's not to actually get there. It's like the mountain will just keep growing and you're just gonna keep trucking along trying to get to that place. Every single thing that I've been through has led me to be to this place. I didn't believe there was a reason for everything I've gone through. I might go a little crazy. There's a point that I want to get to where I feel like I won't be satisfied, but I'll be like, this is exactly what I want to be doing for the rest of my life, and I'm so happy to continue to be in this place. I was watching an interview with Spike Lee the other day where he was just like, when you get to a certain point, everyone answers your call. Like, you know, like that's the place that I think it's possible to get to. Everyone doesn't answer my call yet, so. Yeah. The advice that I would share for any young person kind of coming up, particularly in creative industries right now, is to never limit yourself to one path. You have to be super flexible, super agile, develop as many skills as you can, because you never know where they're gonna come in handy. It was only through my skills as an educator that I tapped into getting into television. Like, I didn't go to journalism school, I didn't go to film school. I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things, you should definitely do those things, but if you don't, you never know what other skills you'll pick up along the way that will suddenly become of use and of value. Be as flexible and get as many experiences as possible, because they'll all make you that much more interesting, and mean that if they try to get rid of you, they cannot replace you, because no one can do what you do like you do it. So, my name is Amanda Parris. I didn't come this far to only come this far.